Hello, my name is Frances Fox, and I'm a trained remote viewer. I'm also trained in interspecies communication and in all the psychic skills and abilities that all human beings have. It gets drummed out of us when we go to school. School system doesn't tolerate that. You have to learn what's in books. Your instincts have no value. And at home, even before that, if you see something weird, something strange, if you feel something weird, strange, your parents probably denied it. So you end up not trusting what may be the number one tool to keep you safe from here forward, because we've already found out we can't trust the media, we can't trust the government, we can't trust what we read. That's a problem because we have been so externally oriented that unless we have been sexually or physically abused as a child, or we have had issues, political issues in other countries and also in this one, or we've had a near death experience, or we've had to live under a lot of threats, or we're a mother. Those are exceptions in which we do pay attention and honor this extra information that comes in. What I'm going to talk about today is a continuation of what we talked about yesterday, which has to do with the news to where immigrants are eating pets. I'm going to call out Gerardo Rivera because he's from Puerto Rico, which is the island next to the island that Haiti is on, and he knows full well that this is accurate. This is commonplace. This is part of their culture. It's part of voodoo. So I don't remember exactly what comment it was, but I felt like responding to him right there, and then I didn't. And so here I'm responding even more publicly. You can't cover the truth anymore because we're in Revelations. So throughout history, as I said yesterday, they have used the killing of animals and of human beings to anchor magic, black magic. Haiti is an island that the practice of voodoo is every place, and the practice of killing animals is also. So, whatever person wants to say that that's not accurate doesn't know what they're talking about or is embarrassed. And I can understand the embarrassment, Gerardo, but doesn't make you look good when everybody finds out and everybody knows. The truth shall set you free, all of us. The truth of the matter is that we are allowing in volumes of people whose cultures are very different from ours and who will not integrate easily because they don't have to, because there's so many of them that they can live in a little bubble. Like in Miami, when the Cubans came over in 1960, many of the Cubans that came over then, the older ones never learned English. They didn't have to. It was as if they were still in Cuba in terms of learning another language, just as in New York. There was a lot of people that came over, Jewish people, and they didn't have to learn English. They spoke Yiddish. They didn't need to, so they didn't. Now it's even a bigger volume in a shorter time, and they're going to keep their cultural values. And that includes, in terms of the Haitians that are coming over, it includes the killing of animals as part of their culture. So we need to wrap our heads around this and figure out what we're going to do with it because you can't make it go away. You've got to control it some way. Even in Florida, you can kill animals as part of, if it's part of your religion, Santeria. Did you know that? Now, I hope I'm wrong and somebody will get back and say that's not true, but I believe that it is. And there are actually farms around Miami that raise animals to be sold to the people that use them in rituals. I personally went to one. I was not aware of what the farm was about. I came to take care of the clients, and they did not tell me that it was for that. It wasn't until afterwards that I found out. Of course, they're on the way outskirts, outside of Miami, in the rural area, etc. So, so what is it with the whole killing of animals for ritual? It's all about magic. First, let me say that the number one or the number two law of planet Earth is free will. that you are allowed to do whatever you want to do. You have the right to do that on planet Earth. And then we have laws and whatever restrict us. So when somebody does black magic on you, they're interfering with your free will. They're not telling you that they're doing it. They don't want you to know, because then might be able to defend yourself or get it released. So black magic is obviously not good. It goes against your free will, which you're supposed to have, and black magic works. If not, it would not have been used through the centuries. I have reached a point where I can kind of tell, but this is a lot of years. I'm very good at what I do because I'm very dedicated. I really want to know. I want to understand. I want to be able to do stuff to be able to help people and me and my family. I can kind of tell when somebody is doing something that is being triggered by black magic and is not of their own volition. There's a quality there. Most people cannot do that. But what I'm saying is it changes things. Like, let's say somebody does black magic for you to like someone, and you're discussing this other person with someone. There's like a little overenthusiasm. There's an edge to it that is not natural. I remember things don't flow naturally, which is the whole point. I remember one day I witnessed a person who's always very careful with their diet, and they were eating a particular pastry cookies that somebody had brought. And they kept saying, God, these are incredibly, these are great. And they kept standing up and going and getting another one and getting another one. I thought, that's really, really weird. It wasn't weird. The person presented that food, which was dessert, which was cookies, with black magic. That person was in the business of selling cookies. And they wanted this particular group of people, which included this person, to love them so much that they would recommend them. And this person who never ate 1 calorie outside of their diet was consuming them as if their life depended upon it. So that doesn't mean that every time you see somebody doing something weird that it's black magic. But there are signs. And if you have to be close to that world enough, you can kind of tell. It's people going against their what they normally do, etc. I don't expect you to be an expert. What is the whole thing about killing of animals? The killing of animals adds an incredible push to the power of the black magic. As I explained yesterday in the chat podcast yesterday, the black magic creates a horrifying, high volume emotional angle and energy, opens up a portal because of that. That portal allows in ETs, aliens, who make it their job to make sure that that black magic works, lands, and stays operational. Black magic you can have the ancestral black magic, the ones that are talked about in the Bible, and the black magic, if you request it, can affect up to 7 generations of a family. I take care of many people who have that type of black magic. And it's interesting because I learned very early on that if they had that kind of black magic 7 generations ago, 5 generations ago, they don't do that very much anymore. But why? Because at least when I have found it, it's generally done in a rural area by people that live in a rural area, by people that are very connected to the land and to the animals and have been doing this for a long time and can do it very intensely. I don't think I've seen that type of black magic done in a city setting. Maybe some of that black magic I take care of in terms of ancestral is done in a city, but I don't think so. And I see it less and less. And when I diagnose it, sometimes I get that it was 4 generations back or 6 generations back. I rarely get it that it would have been 1 or 2 generations back. So I think that kind of black magic is not being done so much anymore. But we all know about families that traditionally have had such bad luck, and that's like the first sign for an ancestral black magic. ancestral curses. Magic, black magic and curses is basically the same thing. And we've known families and people that it's just such bad luck. And generally that's the first system. And then a lot of weird things happen. Things just never go right. Lots of depression, sometimes lots of mental illness. And again, weird stuff. They achieve something wonderful. And right before like a company hires them, they got this great job, and all of a sudden the company goes bankrupt. Or they get married and everything is wonderful, and then the person dies right after they got married. Things that are like, wow, that's a lot of really bad luck. So anyway, the whole issue with black magic is that this country, it's getting here, but it's not getting here through the Haitians. It's getting here through regular people that want to know more about magic because we have become more magical human beings. When I started working with groups of people via the internet and chats, the groups that are now, we call the mantrista movement because they do the main tool we use is mantras. Darn, I lost my train of thought. What I would say, and I say it today, the place that I have learned the most about the power of intention and the creating of reality is by looking at the black magic that has been done to my clients and followers and my family and me. And in the beginning, I was like shocked. My God. And the expression is, ¿cómo se le ocurre? Which means, how did they even think of that? How did they even think of that? It's hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, that they've been thinking on how to take down human beings in particular arenas. Now, lately, there's a new type of black magic that I'm not going to describe, but I have to tell you, it's an art that evolves. And it's something that I believe everybody really needs to be educated in because it's getting more common. What are the kinds of people that do black magic? People that feel powerless. We talk about Haiti. There's no power there. There's no people there have no personal power. People that feel powerless. In terms of Latin America, it's mainly the females because they feel powerless. It's a way that they have an edge, or they're able to get something done, or they can stop something bad from happening. And then you go all the way from the bottom strata of society, and mothers trying to protect their families, not enough money, whatever. And then you go all the way to the top. It's the middle class that doesn't get into this. From what I have observed, these are my observations. And many people start in black magic because the situation arises, they're backed up against the wall, they don't know what to do, they can't get out of it, and then they go for help, and somebody does card reading, and then okay, well, now what do I do with this information? Well, maybe you want me to help you out there a little bit, and then they do something that in Spanish is called a trabajo, which means a work. I don't like the description, but it's a trabajo, it's a work, like a job. I could do a job for you. Actually, that's the translation, a job. And then they do it initially. What I have found is they do it initially to defend themselves, to take care of themselves, and then it ends up becoming a habit. And as I keep telling my followers, black magic is addictive. If you get into that world because you just wanted to help your kid, one foot into that, and it's very difficult to get out. And once you have one foot into that door, then you get 2 feet into the door, and then something even more awful happens. And my God, the last 3 times you asked for a job to be done, it worked. So why on earth wouldn't you use it again? It's an addiction, and it slowly becomes a part of your life. So you're trying to get out of there. You don't want to do this, and it's very difficult. So you know what? Don't go there the first time. And people say, no, but she's just a card reader. Okay. In terms of Latin America, I think that practically all the card readers are into that. Even if it's the kind of magic they called endulzar, which means sweeten somebody up. If you're sweetening them up, you're still taking away their free will. You're making them feel good about you or better about you than they would have if you hadn't done that. So it's still not right, not good. And I'm not going to say that ultimately, in the end, it doesn't work. What I will tell you is that the people that are into this, that do these jobs are all poor. Their children do not do well. They look like hell. They don't have any money. So how come you're going to go ahead and work with them and that's what their life looks like? And I'm telling you, there's practically no exceptions because they get the bad spirits to work with them and get this little money to help you, but those bad spirits take them down and they think that they're in control. They're not in control. And I tell people, okay, so this person you're working with, how are they doing? How are the kids doing? They're poor, right? I mean, like really poor? Well, yeah, it's an old lady. Uh, so, yeah, you can get some stuff accomplished with it. And if you have zero power, such as most people in Haiti, and you can get something accomplished for 2 weeks, that's better than nothing. So I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just telling you. Now, we get volumes of people from other cultures that all of a sudden are dumped over here, zero power, and they're going to stay within their culture. The same way we Cubans stayed within our culture when we came to Miami. We adjusted. And this is another point I want to make. And I was an illegal alien twice. The first time I was 2 years old, I came from Europe. I didn't have proper documentation, even though my father was US military. But they didn't want me to be an American citizen. Okay, so we come to the United States, we go to Nevada, and I don't have the proper documentation. I'm 2 years old. So I was an illegal alien. I was put technically in jail in the custody of my parents. That's the first time. And the second time, very mysteriously, my father quits the military and we go to Cuba when everybody's leaving in 1960. When Castro came in, we're going to Cuba. My father quits the military. Obviously, he went there to do intelligence work. So when the United States broke relations with Cuba, I was the only one in the family. Oh, what a coincidence. That was not an American citizen. Everybody else, including my sisters that were born in Cuba, they were American citizens. I was born on a military base. They made me a Cuban citizen. I had never been to Cuba. So I was brought over illegally with false documentations when I was 12. So I've been an illegal alien twice. I have a lot of illegal aliens that are friends of mine that I love. I know a lot of people. I have nothing against illegal aliens. But most of the people that came, including all that original group of Cubans, worked within the system that you had here. And I'll tell you something, and maybe people will be not happy with me saying this, but the type of Cubans that are coming now, the people that were born under or lived under communism for decades, do not work within the system because their training is to work the system, to get around it. So what they're doing, and I'm not saying the rest of Latin America is under communism, but we may want to pay attention to what I'm saying now because it may help explain some stuff. The Cubans that came, that not the ones that came the first 10 or 15 years, but after that, in the ones that were born under communism, they come here, they're not the same as the original Cubans that came because they were not raised the same. Environment versus nurturing, environment. They come here, they step back and they look at the system. And then they figure out how to play the system. And they figure out how to play the system without having to work. Because that's what you do in Cuba under communism. You don't want to work. You're not going to, if you work hard, you're not going to get paid more. You're not going to get a better job. You're going to do exactly what they tell you to do. So why don't you play the system to the best of your ability? Which I guess there's not a lot of wiggle room over there. But when you get here, there's a lot of wiggle room. You look at the system and you go, free healthcare. Okay. And the whole thing with the whole Medicare fraud, I am sure that Miami clinics were poster boys for Medicare fraud because it was so easy. I don't know any of the details, but I can tell you that there were people in Miami who ran these clinics. They ran the Medicare patients through them. They lived in Cuba. They make gazillions of dollars. Now, most of them have already been caught and have been shut down, but it took a lot of years for that to happen. They learn to play the system. That's their culture if they're raised under communism. They learn to play the system. And this system has been a system that's very easy to play because the system was set up. I'm not talking about today, but in terms of the intentions of the system in the United States to help people. If the people are at the bottom, let's help them out. You can't do that with somebody that was raised in communism because you will end up, they'll clean out your bank account and they'll feel fine because those are their values, because that's how they survived in Cuba under communism. And I don't think you can do a retraining on that. So we're running into something that's cultural from generations having to do with Haiti, and people are horrified, and they should be horrified. And I know there are places where they don't have pets in Latin America, or they have them very closely monitored precisely because of that. But it's a cultural thing. You do stuff in this country that's really weird for us, for those of us that are not kind of originally from here, like send your kids off to college, to other universities outside of your cities and states, to send them to other countries to study. Why would you do that? Your kids are supposed to be within the family. In other words, it's a cultural thing. And it's kind of okay. But it's not okay to dump that many people who are going to play the system. And then you have what's happening, and then have cultural characteristics that are totally incompatible. And this is not a fault thing, and this is not somebody being bad and not accepting other people the way they are. It's culture shock, total culture shock. And then with everybody in the United States, I'm going to make a criticism, not really connecting well with other human beings. Everybody's really shut down and connecting too much to their pets, to where a vast majority of people say their best friend is their pet. And then you have a culture come in and they'll eat your pet. What are you talking about? You're talking about a society that is absolutely horrified. It'll be easier to eat the brother than to eat the pet. Because, oh yeah, cannibalism, what can I tell you? But to eat your pet in this country, that's it, it's over. Just trying to give you some perspective. Because we are in really interesting times. Now, I don't know how this is going to get fixed, other than the entire country doing a mantra, which may be, please God help us with our intention, to miraculously preserve the culture that created the greatness of the United States. That mantra would be really good. You'd have to get, you don't need the entire country. You could get a couple of 100,000 people doing that, and they could create that wave of creation of reality. Now, if I could get my handlers, the government, my enemies, the Cuban political mafia off of my back, maybe I could reach enough people that we can get that to happen. But other than that, we're in deep trouble. We know that. And yet, it was said, and I know that that's true, that at this time in written human history, this will be the first time that we can create our individual reality and not a collective reality. So within this mess that we're in, if we can keep our head clear and our focused intention protected, because you have to protect it, you can have the reality that you want. And that's what I'm trying to teach in these chats and podcasts. So let's go ahead. Yeah, I like the mantra a lot. I just invented it. So Portofino, write it down. Send it to me. I'm not going to remember. Let's go ahead and do a mantra with that new music. Did you pay attention to it? Did you pay attention to the parts of your body? So this new composition by Mateo Guaron is a frequency, as is all music and sound, and everything has a frequency. And when we put it on and you can feel a part of you tense up, you have either a congestion of negative emotions or a spirit there, probably both. So you pay attention and you don't just wait till the next chat. You go ahead and breathe a lot into that area and you tap it, and you'll be able to release something. And a lot of times when you release something, you can actually feel like something like, oh God, I feel like something just left. Let's not ask what just left. Let's just be happy that it left, okay? So let me look at the list of options with mantras. I'm going to go with the thing with the mastery, because if what everybody is saying happens, which is there's going to be something big happening, we need to really embrace the fact that we can create the reality that we want in spite of circumstances. And that is like a type of magic. Okay? So here we go. The whole issue with being a master is all about the third eye, which is where there is the all seeing eye, the wisdom, and superpowers. We were scheduled to access our superpowers on planet Earth in the 1960s when they had, it is a dawning of the age of Aquarius. Okay. But it was decided by the powers that control, oversee this planet, which I'm hearing about more on X. Like people accepting that the Great White Brotherhood and the Federation of whatever existed, and it does exist. I didn't believe it before. I thought it was like, well, I do. Because they actually visit us and I'll tell you the funniest thing about the Great White Brotherhood and the Federation, the Galactic Federation. Many times when the Mantrista movement and I are working on something important, I will be able to see aliens that don't like the fact that I'm achieving something. I can see them going up to the tribunal and complaining that I'm breaking the rules, that I'm using too much power, and that's not allowed. And until now, the supervising forces have said, it's okay, she's not doing anything wrong. And it was the first time I saw that, I said, I have got to be inventing this. This is not, I don't even believe in that. It's happened many times. It makes sense. I believe in it. It's real. And you'll all be finding about these governing bodies that are very wise. You'll be finding out about it soon enough. So we're supposed to have superpowers since the 60s. What happened? In the 40s, we dropped A-bombs in Japan when we didn't need to, because they had already given up. They had already lost. Everybody knew that. So what's the issue? We wanted to see what dropping an A-bomb would do. I think that the supervising forces of planet Earth looked at that and said, these people are not ready for superpowers. So it was postponed. Now is when it's available. And it is in the third eye. Okay? So quit with that fluoride and figure out how you can get more contact with nature and how you can get more free time to where your mind is not multitasking, and figure out how you can stop sleeping with that cell phone and all those radiating devices, because those are killing the third eye, so that you can access your third eye and superpowers, which is what's supposed to be happening now. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the music that's very stimulating and purifying. And this mantra is repeated in silence. I can't believe that I've talked for 28 minutes. One time I had my family come to a lecture I gave on why children were so different than before. And I remember my granddaughter must have been like 10, 12. When it was over, been, oh, that was a great lecture, everybody. And she came up and said, Huela, which means grandmother. You talk a lot. She's right. I'm half Cuban. Okay, here we go. 10 minutes. And it doesn't have a visual. Okay, we haven't been able to do that yet. Okay. Feels good, doesn't it? It relaxes you. What happens when you do these type of sessions with the mantras and the frequencies? You align your energy bodies and you collapse all those attention units, all those vectors towards other things, and you focus, which, by the way, is the reason for rituals to create focus. I do a lot of purifications of people that have had black magic done to them after I analyze their aura. And I don't use any rituals or any instruments or anything other than my mind. But practically everybody that does purifications uses some kind of a ritual, but the rituals are to help them to focus. It's important to know. So when you're going to get into this world, if you want to achieve an intention, you probably should have practices. And the reason for the rosaries in the Catholic Church and in Buddhism is you're holding them in your hand physically and you're going stone by stone. That touching on the physical dimension helps you to keep your focus. So the rituals have to do with keeping your focus on your intention. But ultimately, all you really need is the power of your mind. So we will be back. And hopefully, with all this information, which I do not expect you to believe it all or even most of it, but it's information, it's background, it's there. And at some point, you'll remember and go, oh, yeah, I heard that. Now it makes more sense now that I know all this other stuff. And that's what we're here for. Knowing full well that a lot of what we're saying is just not available to you fully yet in terms of believing it. And I'm okay with that. Okay? So we'll see you back. Bye.